That, my friends, is what you call a global rebellion. That's certainly what scholars are calling it. In fact, it's the title of a relatively recent study that just came out on the mass uprisings all over the world of conservatives, traditionalists, patriots who are pushing back against our secular globalist elite who want to rule us rather than represent us and shove their woke leftist values down our throats. Woke values that deliberately seek to morally weaken us so that we become passive, compliant subjects, subservient to the political and economic and environmental whims and desires of the demons in Davos and the dolts in DC. And as you can see, the jig is up. The global rebellion has begun. Patriots are rising up all over the world to restore their national sovereignty, declare for all to hear that we are free men and free men will not be ruled. The worldwide tide has turned and it is just getting started, and I'm just getting started. What if I told you there was a small group of investors who wildly outperformed the market? Well, there is, and you know exactly who they are. Corrupt politicians like Nancy Pelosi and establishment senators have been using their security clearances and exclusive knowledge to their advantage in the market for decades now. They know when sales are up. They know what earnings are going to be. They know about legislation, incoming Fed changes, you name it, a whole host of other inside baseball tips that gives them an unfair advantage when picking stocks. When these bigwigs make moves, odds are they know something. But thanks to a little-known SEC database, guess what? We can see what and when these people are buying. Not only do we get to see it in real time, but we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves perfectly legally and ethically. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years, and his recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%. And according to him, there's no better way to beat the market. Now it's your turn. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can learn to trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself. Let's dive right in here. So, Tbilisi, Georgia. The Patriots in Tbilisi, Georgia aren't fooling around anymore. It's being widely reported that the annual Pride Parade in the Georgian capital had to be canceled due to violent disruptions by anti-LGBTQ plus activists affiliated with so-called far-right patriot groups, insurrectionists. Organizers for the Pride Parade were livid. They accused police authorities of basically siding with the patriot protesters and that they failed to prevent the disturbances. And they failed to protect parade attendees. Of course, as you could see, there certainly were clashes between police and protesters, but they appeared to be temporary as pro-traditional families values activists successfully stormed the Pride Festival and began setting pride flags on fire and dismantling pride displays. Tbilisi Pride, the organization that sponsored the event, is accusing the Georgian government of coordinating with these disruptive so-called far-right groups, these insurrectionists, and of course, various international organizations such as the UN and the ultra-woke U.S. Embassy condemned the violence and called for the protection of LGBTQI plus rights. Now, if you don't know, this is all just par for the course in the nation of Georgia, okay? Georgia is a very, very conservative, religiously conservative, traditionalist nation. The Georgian Orthodox Church is the single most trusted public institution among them all, right? Take the government, take banks, police, you name it. Georgian Orthodox Church consistently polls as the number one most trusted public institution. Georgia, in many respects, is rising up as a model post-secular nation. The Georgian Orthodox Church, more or less for the last 30 years, has been filling the mass vacuum that was left with the collapse of communism. So just as communism provided the ideological glue that held society together as a result of its fall in 1991 with the breakup of the Soviet Union, now Orthodox Christianity is filling that ideological vacuum. 85% of the population of Georgia claims to be Orthodox Christian. 85%. They have a weekly church attendance rate of 20%, which is actually very high among European nations. European nations never had very high church attendance rates. That tended to be more of a Puritan emphasis in the British Isles and the United States. Just to give you an idea of the national commitment to the Georgian Orthodox Church, check this out. 75% of respondents in a recent poll said that they would never vote for a political party that was critical of the Georgian Orthodox Church. How's that for loyalty? Again, remember, after decades of communist rule, the Georgian Orthodox Church has become the symbol of national revival for Georgians. And so, needless to say, Georgian politicians are constantly posturing and groveling as pro-Christian, pro-Orthodox, pro-traditional values. In fact, a politician would have little political legitimacy if there were not in some way, shape, or form, they weren't in some way, shape, or form endorsed by the church. But this revival of traditional values in Georgia really is in many respects just par for the course of what's happening in Eastern Europe as a whole. The Pew Research Center has recently published some very interesting findings when it comes to the moral persuasions and commitments among Europeans, particularly in relation to same-sex marriage and particularly among young adults. Okay, so we're talking adults between the ages of 18 and 34 were surveyed by Pew, and what they found was that while Western European young adults were overwhelmingly approving of same-sex marriage, that perspective changed dramatically as soon as you cross eastward into Central Europe and beyond. And the discrepancy of perspective was really quite dramatic. So whereas 6% of Danes and only 12% of Finns and only 7% of Spaniards stated that they opposed same-sex marriage, those numbers rise exponentially when one reaches Poland, where 50% of young people between 18 and 36, 50% of young people oppose same-sex marriage. 1 in 2. Now, I mean, we literally go from 7% opposition to 50% opposition when you cross from Western to Central Europe. It's an absolutely punctuated, disproportionate leap, but that's just where it begins. The discrepancy increases the farther we go into Eastern Europe. So 75% of Serbs, 82% of Ukrainians, 86% of Russians, and as you might have guessed, 94% of Georgians, beat out only by the Armenians, 95% of Armenians, all absolutely oppose the notion of same-sex marriage. And so here we're talking not merely an astonishing discrepancy between West and East, but indeed an astonishing level of commitment to traditional conceptions of sexual and marital ethics among Central and Eastern European nations. It's absolutely astonishing. And keep in mind, may I remind you, these stats are coming from young adults, primarily Gen Zers. These stats are from respondents between the ages of 18 and 36. I mean, let that hit you.